dear students, welcome to my class. Today we are going to focus on the fourth segment of our chapter Business Environment. So what is the topic of our today's class? Today we are going to understand the economic environment in India. Now see, in the previous class we have understood the dimensions of business environment. In that class also we had played or focused more on the economic environment only. So today we are going to again understand the economic environment in the context of India. Yesterday or in the previous class we had understood it in general from the concept of business. Now today we need to understand that how the economic environment in India played the major role in framing the major policies of the government. Now, to understand this segment, we need to understand what has been the journey of our country. See, India got independence in 1947. Before that, we were under the rule of Britishers and they used to exploit us in all the ways and majoritarily economically. After independence, from the period of 1947 to 1991, Indian economy was kind of socialist, where the Indian government wanted to give an opportunity to each and every individual where the man shouldn't exploit the man. But the policies which were framed by government in the period of 1947 to 1991, it did not help in the development of the country. There are many reasons for that. The first and major reason is India being an agricultural nation, and in that also India being a rural nation. So then when we had got our independence, India was by large a rural country. Today we have so many mega cities, towns or cities, but then there was no such concept. The second major thing was in the sector of health. India was very poor and it had a very bad health system then. Death rates were higher, no good facilities were there into the health sector. Again, if we come and focus on the segment of education also, that time we didn't have good education as well. So, if we see, these are the social factors. These social factors contributed a lot into the failure of the government in developing the nation. And then in 1991, the Indian government had to take many major decisions with the help of which today we can call India as a superpower. Okay. So today we are going to understand that what is the meaning of economic environment in the context of India. Now see here, we have taken down here few points which will help you in understanding that. ಭಾರತದಲ್ಲಿ ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಪರಿಸರದ ಒಂದು ಬಹಳ ಮಹತ್ವವಾದಂತಹ ರೋಲ್ ಐತೆ ನೋಡ್ರಿ. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಯಾವಾಗ ನಾವು ಈ ವಿಷಯದ ಅಧ್ಯಯನವನ್ನು ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಮೊನ್ನೆ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಪರಿಸರವನ್ನು ತಿಳ್ಕೊಂಡಿವಿ, ಬಟ್ ಅದು ಸಾಮಾನ್ಯ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಿಂದ ಒಂದು ವ್ಯಾಪಾರ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಿಂದ ತಿಳ್ಕೊಂಡಿವಿ. ಇವತ್ತು ನಾವು ಇದನ್ನು ಯಾವ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಿಂದ ತಿಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋಕೆ ಪ್ರಯತ್ನ ಮಾಡಕತ್ತೀವಿ? ಭಾರತದ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಿಂದ ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಪರಿಸರದ ಏನು ಪ್ರಭಾವ ಇತ್ತು ಮತ್ತು ಈಗೂ ಐತಿ ಅದನ್ನು ನಾವು ಕಲಿಯಬೇಕಾಗ್ತೈತಿ. ಈಗಿನ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿನೂ ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ಬಿಸ್ನೆಸ್ ಮ್ಯಾನ್ ಈ ಒಂದು ಪರಿಸರಕ್ಕೆ ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ಮಹತ್ವವನ್ನು ಕೊಟ್ಟು ಅದರ ತಕ್ಕಂತೆ ಅವರು ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ಪಾಲಿಸೀಸ್ ಮತ್ತು ಪ್ಲಾನಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಗಳನ್ನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಓಕೆ. So the economic environment in India consists of various macro level factors related to means of production and distribution of wealth which have impact on business and industry. Okay, so ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಹೇಳಿಕೆ ಪ್ರಯತ್ನ ಮಾಡಕತ್ತಾರೆ ನೋಡ್ರಿ, ಭಾರತದಲ್ಲಿ ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ಮ್ಯಾಕ್ರೋ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಅದಾವು. ಯಾವುದಕ್ಕೆ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಪ್ರಭಾವ ಭಾರತ ದೇಶದ ಏನು ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಪರಿಸರ ಐತಿ ಅದರ ಮೇಲೆ ಬೀಳ್ತೈತಿ. In the previous class we have understood by large that what are the macro level factors. Unemployment is there, population is there, which have a direct impact onto the country's growth. Okay. ಸೊ ಈಗ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಬಹಳ ಸಂಕ್ಷಿಪ್ತದಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನು ತಿಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋಕೆ ಪ್ರಯತ್ನ ಮಾಡಕತ್ತೀವಿ ನೋಡ್ರಿ. ಸೊ ಯಾವಾಗ ನಾವು ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಪರಿಸರ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ, ವಾಟ್ ಆರ್ ದ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ಸ್ ಟು ಬಿ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ಡ್, ವಾಟ್ ಆರ್ ದ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್ that needs to be included. So the first thing is stage of economic development of a country. ನಾವು ಯಾವುದೇ ದೇಶಕ್ಕೆ ಮೂರು ಭಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಹಂಚ್ತೀವಿ. ಓಕೆ, ಪೂರ್ ಕಂಟ್ರಿ, ಡೆವಲಪಿಂಗ್ ಕಂಟ್ರಿ, ಡೆವಲಪ್ಡ್ ಕಂಟ್ರಿ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಈ ಮೂರು ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ದಾಗಿಂದ ಆ ಒಂದು ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ದೇಶ ಯಾವ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ದಲ್ಲಿ ಐತಿ ಅದು ನೋಡೋದು ಬಹಳ ಮಹತ್ವದ ಆಗ್ತೈತಿ. ಸೊ ಯಾವಾಗ ನಾವು ಇಕನಾಮಿಕ್ ಡೆವಲಪ್ಮೆಂಟ್, ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಆಫ್ ಇಕನಾಮಿಕ್ ಡೆವಲಪ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಅ ಕಂಟ್ರಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ, ಸೊ ನಮ್ಮ ಭಾರತ ದೇಶ ಯಾವ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಐತಿ? ವಿ ಆರ್ ಸ್ಟಿಲ್ ಅ ಡೆವಲಪಿಂಗ್ ಕಂಟ್ರಿ. There are predictions that India will be a developed country, we will be a superpower, but then the right kind of policies are required from the government. Okay, so ಯಾವಾಗ ನಾವು economic environment ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ, ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಪರಿಸರ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ, the first thing that needs to be considered is what is the stage of the economic development of any country. Then the second thing that we need to focus is the economic structure in the form of mixed economy. Now India is a mixed economy, but then when we had received our independence, then ours was a socialist economy because government wanted to give equal opportunity to each and everyone. Then the economic, industrial, monetary and fiscal policies of the government. Now see, these are the four major policies which by large define and decide the fate of any country in terms of economy. So therefore it's very necessary to understand that what economic policies that particular government is adopting, what is the approach of that government towards the industrial policies, how the government looks at the monetary policies which are by large affecting the banking industry, and then the fiscal policies, how the governments are maintaining and managing their accounts, and in what way it affects the economic transactions of the nation. So these four are very important segments to be understood and studied for any commerce students who are planning to make their career into the field of economy or finance or banking also for that matter. Okay, so then whatever policies are framed by the government in the context of economy, industry, monetary and fiscal, it defines and decides the fate of the country. Then the economic indices. Okay, there are many economic indices. Indices ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? ಲಕ್ಷಣಗಳು. ಯಾವ ನಮಗೆ ಹೇಳ್ತಾವ, ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಯಿಂದ ಈಗ ಸಪೋಸ್ ನಮಗೆ ಜ್ವರ ಬಂದೈತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಯಿಂದ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ? We will use a thermometer. Okay, so in that we'll come to know that what is the body temperature. So if it is more, we'll call that okay, we have a fever. So in the same way there are many indices that are used to check the health of the nation, and these digits help us to understand that how the nation is performing, what is the health of economy of the nation. Okay, so some of the examples we have taken here, the economic indices like national income, what is the national income of the country, what is the per capita income of the country, and various other factors are there. Okay, so you ನಾಲ್ಕು ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ಸ್ ನಮಗೆ ಏನ್ ತಿಳಿಸ್ತಾವ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಯಿಂದ ಇಕನಾಮಿಕ್ ಎನ್ವಿರಾನ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಬಹಳ ಮಹತ್ವದ ವಿಷಯ ಐತಿ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಇಂಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಯಾವುದೇ ದೇಶದ ಮೇಲೆ ಇರ್ತೈತಿ. ಸೊ ಯಾವಾಗ ನಾವು ಈ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ಅನ್ನು ತಿಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋಕೆ ಪ್ರಯತ್ನ ಮಾಡಕತ್ತೀವಿ, ಯು ನೀಡ್ ಟು ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ದ ಇಕನಾಮಿಕ್ ಎನ್ವಿರಾನ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಇನ್ ಇಂಡಿಯಾ ಇನ್ 3 contexts. What is the first context? The condition of India before independence, that is before 1947. We all know that when Britishers left India, India was a poor country. We had major issues as far as farming is concerned, food crops are concerned, health is concerned, even political crisis also was there at the time of independence. So when Britishers had left India in the year 1947, India was a very poor country, and the government had many problems in front of it, not only from the economic point of view, from the social point of view, from the political point of view, and many other factors. Okay, you shouldn't forget that in the first initial 2 to 3 years, there were many riots, many political instability, Gandhiji was assassinated, and so many things were happening back to back into our country, and ultimately, directly indirectly, that affects the economy of the nation. Then in 1951, the government started framing 5-year plans, and in each 5-year plan, the government started focusing or prioritizing on certain segments of the nation. In one, suppose in one 5-year plan, they were focusing on agriculture, then on the another 5-year plan, they were focusing on the industry, and in this manner, they started preparing budgets, annual budgets, allotments of money, subsidies, and various plans and actions were taken by the government to strengthen the economic condition of the country. So various actions and policies were taken. But the major approach of the government was of socialist, where they did not wanted the private sector to come in. They wanted, by large, the control should be in the hands of the government only, so that there will be no exploitation of the resources, equal opportunity is given to everyone, man is not being exploited by man itself. So this was the thinking of the nation when we got the independence, post-independence. By the time 1991 came, slowly the economy of the nation started collapsing. We started facing many issues. There were many economic reforms required, and that is where the next segment comes in, that is liberalization, privatization and globalization. In short, it is also called as LPG. Okay, now in this picture, if you can identify these two great men of our country, you should and must identify the great personalities who contributed a lot to our nation. So you can, if you can identify this man, who is he? He is P.V. Narasimha Rao. Okay, so he was the Prime Minister then in the year 1991, and the person sitting next to him, can anybody identify him? He is Dr. Manmohan Singh. Okay, so our ex-Prime Minister, as well as then in the year 1991, he was our Finance Minister. So this is the pair, the most important pair, which brought in the most important economic reform of our times. That since independence, if we say 1991, this particular year has contributed a lot in framing the destiny of our country where we are standing today. So due to so many conditions, that there were many issues like health sectors, many issues were there, death mortality rate was high, communicable diseases were there, political instability was there. 1991 is one particular year which had a lot of turmoil in almost every field. In 1991, India was going through economic crisis. In that particular year only, in the 1991, the Congress government had taken away its support from Chandrasekhar, and then the government collapsed and the Lok Sabha elections were called. During the campaigning itself, Rajiv Gandhi was assassinated in Chennai, and due to this political unrest, India lost its lots of creditworthiness into the international market. Do not forget that India was already going through the economic crisis. ಯಾವಾಗ ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆದಿಂದ ನಾವು ಪಾರಾಗತ್ತಿದ್ವಿ in 1991, ಅದೇ ಸಮಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ರಾಜನೈತಿಕ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆಗಳನ್ನು ಉಂಟಾದವು. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಆ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ 1991 ವರ್ಷದಲ್ಲಿನ ರಾಜೀವ್ ಗಾಂಧಿ ಅವರು ಅವರ ಸಮರ್ಥನವನ್ನು ತಗೊಂಡು ಬಿಟ್ರು ಫ್ರಮ್ ದ ರೂಲಿಂಗ್ ಪಾರ್ಟಿ, ಅಂಡ್ ಚಂದ್ರಶೇಖರ್ ಅವರ ಸರ್ಕಾರದ ಏನಾಯ್ತು, ಕೊಲ್ಯಾಪ್ಸ್ ಆಯ್ತು, ಅಂಡ್ ದೆನ್ ಮತ್ತೊಮ್ಮೆ ಎಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಕಾಂಟೆಸ್ಟ್ ಆದವು. ಅದೇ ಎಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಕ್ಯಾಂಪೇನಿಂಗ್ ಟೈಮ್ದಲ್ಲಿ ರಾಜೀವ್ ಗಾಂಧಿ ಅವರದ ಕೊಲೆನೂ ಆಯ್ತು. ಈಗ ನೋಡ್ರಿ, ಏನು ರಾಜನೈತಿಕ ಗತಿವಿಧಿಗಳು ಆಗ್ತಿರ್ತಾವ ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ, ಅದರದ ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿ ಮೇಲೆನೂ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ಲಿ ಬೀಳ್ತಾವ. ಸೊ ಆ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ಒಂದು ಇಕನಾಮಿಕ್ ಕ್ರೈಸಿಸ್ ನಿಂದ ಗೋ ಥ್ರೂ ಆಗಕತ್ತಿದ್ವಿ. We wanted the loans from the international market, from the World Bank, from the International Monetary Fund, but they refused to give us the loan, looking at the conditions going on into the nation. And then once finally the government got elected and P.V. Narasimha Rao was made the Prime Minister of our country, and then he appointed Dr. Manmohan Singh as the Finance Minister of our country, and the first thing that they needed to focus was on the economic crisis of our nation. Our time ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿ ಅಷ್ಟು ಕಠಿಣ ಆಗಿಬಿಟ್ಟಿತ್ತು that rather than focusing on anything else, there was no time for celebrations of the victory or forming the government into the center. The first priority they gave was for the reforms which were immediately required to save the economy. So ಆ ಟೈಮ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ಮೀಟಿಂಗ್ ಆಯಿತು, ಚರ್ಚೆ ಆಯಿತು, ವರ್ಲ್ಡ್ ಬ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ದಿಂದ ಸಲಹೆ ಸೂಚನೆಗಳನ್ನು ತಗೊಂಡ್ರು, and then they came up with the new economic policy of 1991, which is liberalization, privatization and globalization. So ನಾವು ಹಿಂಗೆ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು that 1991 ಏನು ಹೊಸ ನಮ್ದು ಇಕನಾಮಿಕ್ ಪಾಲಿಸಿ ಬಂತು, ಅದು ನಮ್ಮ ದೇಶದ ಏನ್ ಜರ್ನಿ ಐತಿ ಟುವರ್ಡ್ಸ್ ದ ಇಕನಾಮಿಕ್ ಡೆವಲಪ್ಮೆಂಟ್, ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಟರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಆಯಿತು. ಸೊ ಆ ಒಂದು ಟರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ದಿಂದ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ಸುಧಾರಣೆಗಳು ಆಯಿತು, ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ಹೊಸ ಅವಕಾಶಗಳು ಬಂತು, ಎಂಪ್ಲಾಯ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಜನರೇಟ್ ಆಯಿತು, ಡೆವಲಪ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಯಿತು, ಅಂಡ್ ಮೆನಿ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನ್. ಸೊ ಲೆಟ್ ಅಸ್ ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಇನ್ ಡೀಟೇಲ್ why it was. First ನಾವು ತಿಳ್ಕೊಂಡು that ಇದು ಎದಕ್ಕೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತು, why this new economic policy was required, and later on let us see that what were the economic reforms that they brought in. Okay, so ಇದು ಒಂದು ಚಿತ್ರ ನಮಗೆ ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿಯಿಂದ ಅವಗತ ಮಾಡಿಸ್ತೈತೆ ನೋಡ್ರಿ, that what was the situation of India in the year 1991-1992. ಹೆಡ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ನ ಹೇಳ್ತೈತೆ ನೋಡ್ರಿ, economic crisis. There was a huge problem going on in India in the year 1991-92. Okay, ನೀವು ನೋಡಬಹುದು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಭಾರತದ ಚಿತ್ರ ಐತಿ, ಮತ್ತೆ ಇದು arrow bar ನಿಮಗೆ ಏನು ತೋರಿಸ್ತೈತಿ that economic condition is going down terribly and the nation is into the economic crisis. Now what are the reasons? ಅಂತದ್ದು ಏನಾಗಿತ್ತು that economic crisis ಆಯಿತು? Okay, so first there was an external debt of $83.8 billion. Okay, so this is a very huge amount. You can see here the picture that ಯಾವಾಗ ಡೆಪ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿಬಿಡ್ತೈತಿ, ಲೋನ್ ಆಗಿಬಿಡ್ತೈತಿ, ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ ಅಡಿಷನಲ್ ವೇಟ್ ಆನ್ ಎನಿ ನೇಷನ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಇಟ್ ಅಲ್ಟಿಮೇಟ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಲೋಸ್ ಡೌನ್ ದ ಸ್ಪೀಡ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ನೇಷನ್. ದ ಫಾರಿನ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಚೇಂಜ್ ರಿಸರ್ವ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ $1.2 billion. ನೋಡ್ರಿ, ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ದೇಶ ಅವ್ರ ಕಡೆ ಫಾರಿನ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಚೇಂಜ್ ರಿಸರ್ವ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನು ಮೇಂಟೈನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೈತಿ. ಎಷ್ಟು ನಿಮ್ ಕಡೆ ರಿಸರ್ವ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇರ್ತೈತಿ, ಅಷ್ಟ ನಿಮ್ದು ಫೈನಾನ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಪೊಸಿಷನ್ ಏನಿರ್ತೈತಿ ಸ್ಟ್ರಾಂಗ್ ಇರ್ತೈತಿ. ಬಟ್ ಇನ್ ದಿಸ್ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಇಯರ್ ಅವರ್ ಫಾರಿನ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಚೇಂಜ್ ರಿಸರ್ವ್ಸ್ ವರ್ ಡಿಕ್ಲೈನಿಂಗ್ ವೆರಿ ಮಚ್ ರ್ಯಾಪಿಡ್ಲಿ. ಇದರ ಅರ್ಥ ಏನಾಗ್ತೈತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ RBI ಕಡೆ ದುಡ್ಡು ಇದಿಲ್ಲ, ಇಟ್ ವಾಸ್ ಡಿಕ್ಲೈನಿಂಗ್ ವೆರಿ ಕ್ವಿಕ್ಲಿ. Then the growth rate of the nation, the GDP. See, GDP is a very important economic indices. ಅದು ನಮಗೆ ಬಹಳ ಈಸಿಲಿ ತಿಳಿಸ್ತೈತಿ that ನಮ್ಮ ದೇಶದ ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿ ಎಲ್ಲೈತದೆ. Okay, so if I want to talk about today when this class is going on, currently India is again into an economic crisis. ನೋಡ್ರಿ, ಇತಿಹಾಸ ಮತ್ತೊಮ್ಮೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡಾಕತೈತಿ, ರಿಪೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಾಕತೈತಿ. ಸೊ ನಾವು ಈಗ ಸದ್ಯನೂ ಒಂದು ಇಕನಾಮಿಕ್ ಕ್ರೈಸಿಸ್ ದಲ್ಲಿ ಅದೀವಿ, ವೇರ್ ಇಂಡಿಯಾಸ್ GDP ಈಸ್ ಇಂಟು ನೆಗೆಟಿವ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಆವಾಗ ಹೆಂಗಿತ್ತು ನೋಡ್ರಿ, ಇಟ್ ವಾಸ್ 5.49, which was very low. Then the inflation was at 13.88%. What do you mean by inflation? Inflation ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಯಾವಾಗ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ವಸ್ತುಗಳದ್ದು ಪ್ರೈಸಸ್ ಏನಾಗ್ತಾವು, ಇನ್ಕ್ರೀಸ್ ಆಗೋದು ಹೋಗ್ತಾವ. ಸೊ ಯಾವಾಗ ಅದು ಇನ್ಕ್ರೀಸ್ ಆಗೋದು ಹೋಗ್ತೈತಿ, ಅಲ್ಟಿಮೇಟ್ಲಿ ಸೇವಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಕಮ್ಮಿ ಆಗ್ತಾವು, ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಕಮ್ಮಿ ಆಗ್ತೈತಿ, ಮನಿ ಸರ್ಕ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ಕಮ್ಮಿ ಆಗ್ತೈತಿ, ಕೆಲವೊಂದ್ಸತಿ ಜಾಬ್ ಕಟ್ಸ್ ಆಗ್ತಾವು, ಅನ್ಎಂಪ್ಲಾಯ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಇನ್ಕ್ರೀಸ್ ಆಗ್ತೈತಿ, ಅನ್ಎಂಪ್ಲಾಯ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಪಾವರ್ಟಿ ಇನ್ಕ್ರೀಸ್ ಆಗ್ತೈತಿ. ಸೊ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಅ ವಿಶಿಯಸ್ ಸರ್ಕಲ್, ಒಂದ್ರಿಂದ ಒಂದ್ ಏನೈತೆ ಅದು ಲಿಂಕ್ ಐತಿ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಇನ್ಫ್ಲೇಷನ್ ಏನಾಗಕತ್ತಿತ್ತಂದ್ರ ಸತತವಾಗಿ ಗ್ರೋ ಆಗಕತ್ತಿತ್ತು. ದ ಇನ್ಫ್ಲೇಷನ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಇಯರ್ 1991 had crossed 13.88% and the current account deficit, that is CAD, was somewhere around $1.78 billion. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಚಾಲು ಖಾತೆದಲ್ಲಿ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಕಡೆ ದುಡ್ಡನ್ನ ಇದ್ದಿದ್ದಿಲ್ಲ, ಇನ್ನೂ ಅದು ಮೈನಸ್ ದಲ್ಲಿ ನಡೆಯಕತ್ತಿತ್ತು. ಓಕೆ, ಅದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ, ಡೆಫಿಸಿಟ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಚಾಲು ಖಾತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಎದರಿಂದ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ಏನು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆನ್ಸಸ್ ಇರ್ತಾವ ಅದನ್ನ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿತ್ತು. So these are some indices which should help you in understanding that why there was an economic crisis into nation and there was an immediate demand for a solution. Okay. Now, the team of P.V. Narasimha Rao and Dr. Manmohan Singh brought up with major fiscal expansion. They came up with many solutions for the economic crisis. Now, the major solutions were into the field of industry by the new industrial policy, into the trade with the foreign direct investment, and into the agricultural sector. Okay, so in physical expansion ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ಅದು majorly ಈ 4 ಏರಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ focus ಮಾಡಕತ್ತಿತ್ತು. Let us understand what it is. Okay, you can see the smiling faces. So when the smile comes, only when we come up with the solutions. Okay, so industrial licensing was abolished except for a few hazardous and environmentally sensitive industries. MRTP for clearance was also abolished. Okay, so ಮೊದಲು ನಾನು ನೋಡ್ರಿ ನಿಮಗೆ ಹೇಳೇನಿ that government ಒಂದು socialist approach ಇತ್ತು. ಅವ್ರು ಒಟ್ಟ ಪ್ರೈವೇಟ್ ಸೆಕ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಗೆ ಅಲೌ ಮಾಡಕತ್ತಿದ್ದಿಲ್ಲ ಎಂಟರ್ ಆಗಕ ಅಥವಾ ಬಹಳ ಸೀಮಿತ ಕ್ಷೇತ್ರದಲ್ಲಿ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಅವಕಾಶಗಳು ಇದ್ದು. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಇಂಡಸ್ಟ್ರಿಯಲ್ ಲೈಸೆನ್ಸಿಂಗ್ ಅದ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಮಹತ್ವದ ಮಾತು ನೀವು ಏನ್ ತಿಳ್ಕೋಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ಅವಾಗ ಇನ್ ದ ಇಯರ್ 1991 and previously there was a license raj. Okay, license raj ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು, ದಟ್ ಏನ್ ಬಾಹುಬಲಿಗಳು ಇರ್ತಾರೋ ಅಥವಾ ಪರಿಚಯದವರು ಇರ್ತಾರೋ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ಲೈಸೆನ್ಸ್ಗಳು ಸಿಗ್ತಿತ್ತು ವೇರಿಯಸ್ ಬಿಸ್ನೆಸ್ ಮಾಡಕ, ವೆದರ್ ಇಟ್ ಮೇ ಬಿ ಇನ್ ದ ಪೆಟ್ರೋಲಿಯಂ ಆರ್ ಕೋಲ್ ಆರ್ ಮೈನಿಂಗ್ ಇಂಡಸ್ಟ್ರೀಸ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಪರಿಚಯದ ಆಧಾರ ಮೇಲೆ ಬ್ಯೂರೋಕ್ರಸಿ ಕರಪ್ಷನ್ ಆಧಾರ there were many problems into India then. ಸೊ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಟೆಪ್ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡಿತ್ತಂದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಏನ್ ಲೈಸೆನ್ಸ್ ಕೋಟಾ ಇತ್ತು, ಲೈಸೆನ್ಸ್ ರಾಜ್ ಇತ್ತು, ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಅದನ್ನು ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ಲಿ ಅಬಾಲಿಷ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. ದೇ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟೆಡ್ ಕಾಲಿಂಗ್ ಅಪ್ ಫಾರ್ ದ ಟೆಂಡರ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಕೊಟೇಶನ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ದ ಬೆಸ್ಟ್ ಕಂಪನೀಸ್ ವೇರ್ ಗಿವನ್ ದ ಕಾಂಟ್ರಾಕ್ಟ್ಸ್. ಓಕೆ, ಬಟ್ ಎಲ್ಲದಕ್ಕೂ ಓಪನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ನೋ. ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಅವ್ರ ಕಡೆನ ಇಂಡಸ್ಟ್ರೀಸ್ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅವ್ರ ಕಡೆನ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರು, ಲೈಕ್ ದ ಹಜಾರ್ಡಿಯಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಎನ್ವಿರಾನ್ಮೆಂಟಲಿ ಸೆನ್ಸಿಟಿವ್ ಇಂಡಸ್ಟ್ರೀಸ್. ಓಕೆ, ದೆನ್ ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ಬ್ಯೂರೋಕ್ರಸಿದ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆನೂ ಇತ್ತು ನೋಡ್ರಿ ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ, that the paperwork wouldn't get completed very quickly. So there also government removed the unnecessary laws and the compilation of the rules and forms was made much easier. Then from the point of view of trade, ವ್ಯಾಪಾರದ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಿಂದ ಇಂಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಲೈಸೆನ್ಸಿಂಗ್ ವಾಸ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಅಬಾಲಿಷ್ಡ್. ಓಕೆ, ಮೊದಲಿನ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಲೈಸೆನ್ಸ್ ತಗೋಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತು, ಅದರ ಮೇಲೆ ಬಹಳ ಹೆವಿ ಡ್ಯೂಟೀಸ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಸ್ ಪೇ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗ್ತಿತ್ತು ನೋಡ್ರಿ. ಸೊ ಇಂಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಡ್ಯೂಟಿ ರೇಟ್ declined from the very high level of 72.5% in 1991-92 to 24.6% in 1996-97. ಸೊ ಒಮ್ಮೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಮಗೆ ಡಿಕ್ರೀಸ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕಾಗಂಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಗ್ರಾಜುಯಲಿ ಸಣ್ಣಂಗೆ ಅದನ್ನು ರೆಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ತೀವಿ. ಬಟ್ ದೆನ್ ಟು ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್ that when imports are made easier, it gives opportunity for the other industries to buy the material which is easily available into the international market and produce the goods. Okay, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ನಿಮಗೆ ಒಂದು ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ಕೊಡಬೇಕಂತ ಇಚ್ಛುಕದೇನಿ. See, when we are saying that we want to boycott the Chinese products, okay, so you need to have this data correct that many of our Indian industries buy their raw materials from China. So if we really boycott the Chinese products, the first our Indian industries only will collapse. Okay, because we are importing, the Indian industries currently in 2020 also is importing many of the goods from the Chinese because it is of, first of all, it's cheaper and easily made available into the required quantity. Okay, which is normally not available, and that's why only China is called as global exporter. ಇಡೀ ವಿಶ್ವಗೆ ಅದು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೈತಿ, ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೈತಿ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ವೆರಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ದಟ್ ದ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ what kind of import export policy it frames, it has a direct impact on the trade. So ಅವಾಗ 1991 ನಲ್ಲಿ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು, ಏನ್ ಹೆವಿ ಇಂಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಡ್ಯೂಟೀಸ್ ಇದ್ದು ಅದನ್ನ ನಾವು ರೆಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. ಇದರಿಂದ ಹೊರಗಿನ ದೇಶದಿಂದ ನಾವು ರಾ ಮಟೀರಿಯಲ್ಸ್, ಕಚ್ಚಾ ಸಾಮಾನಾಗಿ ಅಥವಾ ಸೆಮಿ ರಾ ಮಟೀರಿಯಲ್, ಸೆಮಿ ಫಿನಿಶ್ಡ್ ಪ್ರಾಡಕ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಆಗಿ ಅದನ್ನ ಖರೀದಿ ಮಾಡಿದವ್ರು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಟ್ರು, ಸುಲಭವಾಗಿ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಟ್ರು. ಓಕೆ, ದೆನ್ ಫಾರಿನ್ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್. ಈಗಿನ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿನೂ ನೀವು ನಮ್ಮ ಭಾರತ ದೇಶದ ಪ್ರಧಾನಿದ ಭಾಷಣಗಳನ್ನು ಕೇಳಿದ್ರಲ್ಲ, ಅವ್ರು ಪ್ರತಿ ಸಲ ಆಹ್ವಾನ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರು, ಬರ್ರಿ ಭಾರತದಲ್ಲಿ ನಿವೇಶ ಮಾಡ್ರಿ, ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲಾನು ಐತಿ, ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಸಂಪನ್ಮೂಲಗಳು ಅದಾವು, ಎಲ್ಲಾ ರೀತಿಯಿಂದ ನಿಮಗೆ ಸಹಾಯ ಸಹಕಾರ್ಯವನ್ನು ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಈಚ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಎವ್ರಿ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಟ್ರೈಸ್ ಟು ಅಟ್ರಾಕ್ಟ್ the foreign direct investment, but it was not earlier. 1991 ದಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವಾಗ ನಾವು ಗ್ಲೋಬಲೈಸೇಷನ್ ಗೆ ಒಪ್ಪಿಗೆ ಕೊಟ್ವಿ, ಅದು ಆದಮೇಲೆ ಫಾರಿನ್ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಗೆ ದಾರಿಗಳು ಏನಾದ್ರು ಓಪನ್ ಆದವು. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ 100% ಓನರ್ಶಿಪ್ ಇನ್ ಅ ಲಾರ್ಜ್ ನಂಬರ್ ಆಫ್ ಇಂಡಸ್ಟ್ರೀಸ್ ಎಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ banks, insurance companies, telecommunications and airlines. Okay, so government ಸಂಕ್ಷಿಪ್ತದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತು, ಅದರ ಮನಿದ ಬಾಗಿಲ ಓಪನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು, ದಟ್ ಬರ್ರಿ ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಬರ್ರಿ, ನೀವು ಏನ್ ಬಿಸ್ನೆಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಿ ಮಾಡ್ರಿ, ನೀವ ಮಾಲಕರು, ನೀವೇ ಡಿಸಿಷನ್ ತಗೋಬಹುದು, ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ನಿಮ್ದ, ಟೆಕ್ನಾಲಜಿನೂ ನಿಮ್ದ, ಉತ್ಪಾದನೆನೂ ನಿಮ್ದ, ಎವ್ರಿಥಿಂಗ್ ಇಸ್ ಯೋರ್ಸ್. ದೆನ್ ವಾಟ್ ಇಂಡಿಯಾ ವಿಲ್ ಗೆಟ್? India will get employment. India will get taxes from that particular company. Okay, so ultimately it is going to help the country also. So ಕೆಲವೊಂದಷ್ಟು ಕಂಪನೀಸ್ ಗೆ ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ಉಳಿದ ಎಲ್ಲಾದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಏನ್ ಕೊಡ್ತು, 100% ಓನರ್ಶಿಪ್ ರೈಟ್ಸ್ ಕೊಡ್ತು. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಓನರ್ಶಿಪ್ ರೈಟ್ಸ್ ಯಾಕೆ ಮಹತ್ವದ ಇರ್ತಾವು ನೋಡ್ರಿ, ಯಾವಾಗ ನಿಮ್ ಕಡೆ ಮಾಲಕಿ ಅಧಿಕಾರ ಇರ್ತೈತಿ, ನೀವು ನಿಮಗೆ ಏನ್ ಸರಿ ಅನಿಸ್ತೈತಿ, ನಿಮಗೇನ್ ಅನುಕೂಲ ಅನಿಸ್ತೈತಿ, ಅದರ ತಕ್ಕಂಗೆ ನೀವು ನಿಮ್ ಡಿಸಿಷನ್ಸ್ ಗಳನ್ನು ತಗೋತೀರಿ. ಬಟ್ ಕಂಪನಿ ನೀವು ನಡ್ಸಾಕತ್ತೀರಿ, ಮಾಲಕಿ ಅಧಿಕಾರ ಇನ್ನೊಬ್ಬರ ಕಡೆ ಐತಿ. Okay, so there will be a gap between the management and the ownership. So then there will be little bit issues in running and focusing on the profit maximization. So again, when gap into the government in its reforms welcomed for 100% foreign direct investments. ಮುಂದೆ ಯಾವಾಗ ನಾವು ಹಿಂಗೆ ಬರಕತ್ತೀವಿ, we can see currently that in telecommunications, even in banking also, FDI is welcomed now. Okay, and the most important segment, agriculture. Okay, India being an agricultural nation, we every year, every budget, every economic policy, whatever, whenever the government is making an announcement, the whole nation looks up to that what package government has to offer for the agricultural sector. So that is a most important part in the context of India. So support prices fixed at higher levels. Nodri, minimum support price ant irtೈತಿ, ಯಾವುದು ರೈತರಿಗೆ ಅಥವಾ ಫಾರ್ಮರ್ಸ್ ಗೆ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಮಾಡೋ ಸಲುವಾಗಿ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಲ್ವೇಸ್ ಸೆಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೈತಿ. So no matter what, if there is a bumper crop production, too much production has happened, the farmer shouldn't fear that when there is too much supply, the prices will go down, then what and how I'll earn the money. So to remove that fear, government promised them that you focus on your production and we will provide you the minimum support price for your production. After this only the green revolution came, the white revolution came, the blue revolution came, which started focusing on the growth of the crops, milk, fishery industry started developing. So when the government started supporting the farmers, started providing the technological aid to the farmers, and also it gave the guarantee for minimum support price, the agricultural industry also flourished. Okay, then development of modern food processing sector. Nodri, ಈಗ ಸದ್ಯ ಭಾರತ food processing sector ದಲ್ಲಿ ನಂಬರ್ 1 ಆಗಬಹುದು. Okay, but still we are not. Food processing ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ವಸ್ತುವನ್ನು ನೀವು ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಲಾಂಗ್ ಟರ್ಮ್ ತನಕ ಯಾವಾಗ ಸೇವ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು, ಅದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಫುಡ್ ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸಿಂಗ್ ಸೆಕ್ಟರ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಉದಾಹರಣೆಗಾಗಿ ಚಿಪ್ಸ್ ತಿಂತೀರಿ, ಕೂಲ್ ಡ್ರಿಂಕ್ಸ್ ಕುಡಿತೀರಿ, ಓಕೆ, ಎಷ್ಟೊಂದು ರೆಡಿಮೇಡ್ ಪ್ರಾಡಕ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಗಳನ್ನು ತಗೊಂಡ್ ಬರ್ತೀರಿ, ಉಪ್ಪಿನಕಾಯಿ ಆಯಿತು ಅಥವಾ ಚಟ್ನಿ ಆಯಿತು, ಪಾಪಡ್ ಆಯಿತು. ಓಕೆ, so many things are there now, so many ready to eat products are there. Just only thing you need to do is go and microwave it for 30 seconds or 60 seconds when your food is ready. ಸೊ ಫುಡ್ ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸಿಂಗ್ ಸೆಕ್ಟರ್ ದಲ್ಲಿ ಸಿಕ್ಕಾಪಟ್ಟಿ ಡಿಮಾಂಡ್ ಇರುವುದರಿಂದ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡಕತ್ತೈತಿ, ಈಗನೂ 2020 ದಲ್ಲಿನೂ ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ಅದರ ಸಲುವಾಗಿ ಸಹಾಯ ಮಾಡಕತ್ತೈತಿ. ಇಡೀ ಒಂದು ಮಿನಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿ ಐತಿ ಫಾರ್ ದ ಫುಡ್ ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸಿಂಗ್ ಸೆಕ್ಟರ್. ದೆನ್ ಅಸೆನ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಟು ದ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಆಫ್ ಅಗ್ರಿಕಲ್ಚರಲ್ ಡೆವಲಪ್ಮೆಂಟ್. ನೋಡ್ರಿ, ಒಂದ್ ಮಾತು ತಿಳ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಡ್ರಿ, ಯಾವಾಗ ಭಾರತದ ಅಥವಾ ವಿಶ್ವದ ರೈತರು ಎಜುಕೇಟೆಡ್ ಆಗ್ತಾರೋ, ದೇ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ adopting the technology whatever is happening, and they will understand the demand, the consumer preferences. Nobody can stop them from growing, but then it is very much essential that they should understand the change into the market, customer preferences, technological changes, and adopt them. Ultimately they will grow. The government will support, it is supporting and will support, but then it has to be a two-way effort. Okay, so 1991 ದಲ್ಲಿ by large ಈ 4 ಕ್ಷೇತ್ರದಲ್ಲಿ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ರಿಫಾರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ತಂದ್ರು, ಡ್ಯೂ ಟು ವಿಚ್ ದ ಇಂಡಿಯನ್ ಇಕನಾಮಿ ಸರ್ವೈವ್ಡ್. ಈಗ ಒನ್ ಬೈ ಒನ್ ನಾವು ಏನ್ LPG ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿವಿ ಅದನ್ನ ಡಿಟೇಲದಲ್ಲಿ ತಿಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋಣ. ಸೊ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಆಲ್, ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಲಿಬರಲೈಸೇಷನ್? ಓಕೆ, ಉದಾರೀಕರಣವೆಂದರೆ ಏನು? ಲಿಬರಲೈಸೇಷನ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ರೆಡ್ಯೂಸ್ಡ್ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ರಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಈ ತರ ನಾವು ಹೇಳಿದ್ವಿ ದಟ್ ಯಾವಾಗ ಆ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅದ ಇಂಟರ್ಫಿಯರೆನ್ಸ್ ಇರ್ತೈತಿ, ನೀವು ಇದನ್ನ ತಯಾರು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಇದನ್ನ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಇದ ಒಳ್ಳೇದೈತಿ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ದ ಸಮ್ ಫೀಚರ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಸೋಷಿಯಲಿಸಮ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಅದೇನು ಇಂಟರ್ಫಿಯರೆನ್ಸ್ ಇತ್ತು ಅದನ್ನ ರೆಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್. ರೆಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಂದ್ರ ಮೀನಿಂಗ್ ಏನಾಯ್ತು? ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಗೇವ್ ದ ಲಿಬರ್ಟಿ ಟು ದ ಪ್ರೈವೇಟ್ ಸೆಕ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ದಟ್ ಓಕೆ, ಯು ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಎವರ್ ಯು ವಾಂಟ್ ಟು ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್, however you want to produce. So they started neglecting the many things related to the quality of the products, the harm the industries can do to the environment, to the pollution. Okay, but it was the need of the hour, so then government reduced its controls and restrictions into many fields. Okay, ಉದಾರೀಕರಣವೆಂದರೆ ಸರ್ಕಾರದ ನೀತಿಗೊಂಡ ನಿಯಂತ್ರಣ ಮತ್ತು ನಿರ್ಬಂಧಗಳು. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತು, ಅದರದ್ದು ಏನ್ ಇಂಟರ್ಫಿಯರೆನ್ಸ್ ಇತ್ತು ಮತ್ತು ಅದರದ್ದು ಏನು ನೀತಿಗಳು ಇದ್ದು ಅದನ್ನ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತು, ರೆಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತು. ಸೊ ಹಿಯರ್ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟೇಕನ್ 2 pictures. See what are the liberalization measures? Okay, government liberalization ಸಲುವಾಗಿ ಏನು ಸ್ಟೆಪ್ಸ್ ಗಳನ್ನು ತಗೊಂಡ್ರು? ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಆಲ್, ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಚೇಂಜ್ಡ್ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಅ ಫಾರಿನ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಚೇಂಜ್ ರಿಫಾರ್ಮ್ಸ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಅವರು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು, ಬದಲಾವಣೆಗಳು ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. ಇಂಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಏನ್ ಟ್ರೇಡ್ ಪಾಲಿಸಿ ರಿಫಾರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಅದಾವು ಅದರಲ್ಲಿನೂ ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ರಿಫಾರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಚೇಂಜಸ್ ಗಳನ್ನು ತಂದ್ರು. ಓಕೆ, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಮಹತ್ವದ ನ್ಯೂ ಇಂಡಸ್ಟ್ರಿಯಲ್ ಪಾಲಿಸಿ ಬಂತು ಇನ್ ದ ಇಯರ್ 1991 ಜುಲೈ ಓನ್ಲಿ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಒಂದು 17 ಏನ್ ನಾವು ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ ಇತ್ತು ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಇಂಡಸ್ಟ್ರೀಸ್ ಮೇಲೆ, ಅದರಿಂದ ಬರೀ 8 ಮೇಲೆ ಬಂತು. ಉಳಿದಿದ್ದೆಲ್ಲಕ್ಕೂ ಅದು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ಟು ಓಪನ್ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ಟು ಫಾರ್ ದ private industries. Then lots of money was borrowed from the international market. Okay, now tons and tons of gold England ಬ್ಯಾಂಕಿಗೆ ಕಳಿಸಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಲೋನ್ ತಗೊಂಡು ಏನ್ ಇಕನಾಮಿಕಲ್ಲಿ ದೊಡ್ಡದು supply of money was required. ಅದನ್ನ ಹಾಕಿದ್ವಿ, with the help of which there were many financial sector reforms, and now tax reforms ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಯಾವಾಗ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಕಮ್ಮಿ ಇರ್ತೈತಿ, ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ಕಂಪನೀಸ್ ಬಂದು ನಿಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಬಿಸ್ನೆಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಂತ ಇಚ್ಛುಕಿರ್ತೈತಿ. ಓಕೆ, ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ನೋಡ್ರಿ, ಯಾರಿಗೂ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಕೊಡೋದು ಇಚ್ಛೆ ಅಥವಾ ಆಸಕ್ತಿ ಇರಂಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಆ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ದಲ್ಲಿ ಕಂಟ್ರಿದಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಯಿಂದ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ರಿಫಾರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಅದಾವ ಅವು ಬಹಳ ಮಹತ್ವದ ಇರ್ತಾವ ಇನ್ ಮೇಕಿಂಗ್ ದ ಡಿಸಿಷನ್. ಸೊ ಇದು ಮೇಜರ್ಸ್ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ತಗೊಂಡು. ಈಗ ಇದರ ಪ್ರಭಾವ ಏನಾಗಿದೆ? ವಾಟ್ ವಾಸ್ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್? ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಪೋಸ್ಟ್ ಲಿಬರಲೈಸೇಷನ್ ಚೇಂಜ್. ಸೊ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ನಮಗೆ ಏನ್ ತಿಳಿತೈತಿ, ದಟ್ ದ rupee declined. Okay, the value of the rupee got declined. It declined almost from 20 to 28%. Okay, then the many huge industries started investing into our country. So industrial licensing was abolished. So industrial licensing got abolished. As I spoke earlier, it was about the license quota, license Raj. Okay, so that got abolished. Private capital got investing into the country, and due to which slowly the economy started moving. Okay, it helped us in taking various decisions. Now let us focus on the next segment, that is privatization. ಖಾಸಗೀಕರಣ. ಈಗ ನೀವು ನೋಡ್ರಿ, ಎಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡ್ತೀವಿ, ನಿಮಗೆ ಬಹಳ ಸರಳ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ಬಿಡ್ತೈತಿ privatization ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು. So what is basically privatization? It is the new set of economic reforms aimed at giving greater role to the private sector in nation building process and a reduced role to the public sector. Public sector basically means the government sector. Okay, so as I told already that with the new industrial policy, the government announced the foreign direct investment as well as privatization into many industries and the reduced interference and role of the government. So idರಿಂದ ಏನಾಯ್ತಂದ್ರೆ ಯಾವಾಗ ಪ್ರಾಫಿಟ್ ಮ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಿಮೈಸೇಷನ್ ಆಯಿತು, ಕ್ವಾಲಿಟಿ ಗೂಡ್ಸ್ ಬರಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಯಿತು. ಕ್ವಾಲಿಟಿ ಗೂಡ್ಸ್ ಬರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಅಗೇನ್ ಕಾಂಪಿಟೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಬರಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಯಿತು ಅಂಡ್ ಅಲ್ಟಿಮೇಟ್ಲಿ ದ ಕನ್ಸ್ಯೂಮರ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟೆಡ್ ಬೆನಿಫಿಟಿಂಗ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಹೊಸ ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಸುಧಾರಣೆಗಳು ರಾಷ್ಟ್ರ ನಿರ್ಮಾಣ ಪ್ರಕ್ರಿಯೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಖಾಸಗಿ ವಲಯಕ್ಕೆ ಬಹು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಪಾತ್ರ ನೀಡುವುದು ಮತ್ತು ಸಾರ್ವಜನಿಕ ವಲಯದ ಪ್ರಾಮುಖ್ಯತೆಯನ್ನು ಕಡಿಮೆ ಮಾಡುವ ಉದ್ದೇಶವನ್ನು ಹೊಂದಿರುವುದನ್ನು ಖಾಸಗೀಕರಣವಾಗಿದೆ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ವಿತ್ ದಿಸ್ you can understand what is privatization. This is a very important 2-mark question. Everybody should and must by heart it. It will come into your examination for 2 marks. Okay, what is privatization? Okay, now let us understand in detail. Here we have prepared one small chart which helps us in differentiating between privatization and nationalism. Okay, so you should and must understand this, that privatization means what and nationalization means what. Okay, because past advertisements inu bartav nodri ಸ್ವದೇಶಿ ವಿದೇಶಿ ಅಂತ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಅವಾಗ ನಿಮಗೆ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ವ್ಯತ್ಯಾಸವನ್ನು ಕಂಡುಹಿಡಿಯಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಬರಬೇಕು. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಓನರ್ಶಿಪ್. ಮಾಲಿಕಿ ಹಕ್ಕ ಯಾರ ಕಡೆ ಇರಬೇಕು. Okay, the firm is owned by the private sector. The one who is investing the money, they are only the owners, and the complete decisions also will be made by them only. In nationalism, firm owned and managed by the government. Can you give an example for a government run or managed any institute? Indian Railways. Okay, so Indian Railways is completely owned and managed by the government of India, and it is one of the largest railway industry into the whole world. Okay, but until now it has been managed and controlled by government only so far. Then incentives. Profit motive acts as an incentive for owners and managers. ಈಗ ನೋಡ್ರಿ, ಯಾರೇ ಸ್ವಂತ ಅಂಗಡಿ ಇತ್ತಂದ್ರನ ಲಕ್ಷ ಕೊಟ್ಟು ಅದರ ಮೇಲೆ ಫುಲ್ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೋ. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ನಾಳೆ ಲಾಭ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಯ್ತಂದ್ರೆ ಯಾರಿಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ತೈತಿ? ಅವ್ರಿಗೇನೋ ಹೋಗ್ತೈತಿ. ಅದನ್ನ ನೌಕರಿ ಮಾಡೋರಿಗೆ ಏನಿರ್ತೈತಿ? ಬರ್ತಾರು, ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರು, ಪಗಾರ ತಗೋತಾರು, ಹೋಗ್ತಾರು. ಓಕೆ, ಡೆವಲಪ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆದಂದ್ರ ಆತು, ಇಲ್ಲಂದ್ರ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ತನಕ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಇನ್ವಾಲ್ವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಇರ್ತೈತಿ? ಟಿಲ್ ದೇರ್ ಸ್ಯಾಲರಿ. Okay, so they are not too much motivated towards growing and developing their institute. Workers may feel motivated if they feel company belongs to them. Okay, so when they feel motivated, when that company particularly belongs to them. Then externalities. Private firm may ignore external costs such as pollution and external benefits. Or they have zero interest that whatever poisonous gas they are giving into the market, into the environment, whatever hazardous water waste is coming from their factories, how it is damaging the environment, they are least bothered about it. So they ignore many external costs. Whereas the government can put social benefits above profit motive. Government ಗೆ ಲಾಭಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಮಹತ್ವದ ಏನಿರ್ತೈತಿ? ಸಾಮಾಜಿಕ ಬೆನಿಫಿಟ್ಸ್ ಬಹಳ ಮಹತ್ವದ ಇರ್ತಾವ. Then efficiency. Okay, so incentive to produce new technology and increase labor productivity. So ಇವ್ರು ಏನ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರು? ಇನ್ಸೆಂಟಿವ್ಸ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರು. ಹೊಸ ಟೆಕ್ನಾಲಜಿ ನೀವು ಅಡಾಪ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರಿ, ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಉತ್ಪಾದನೆ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಓವರ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಸಿಗ್ತೈತಿ ಅಥವಾ ಹೈ ಸ್ಯಾಲರೀಸ್ ಸಿಗ್ತಾವ. Whereas nationalized firms may find it hard to sack surplus workers. Okay, so ಅಲ್ಲಿ additional workers ಅದಾರಂದ್ರೆ ಅವರಿಗೆ ನೌಕರಿದಿಂದ ತೆಗಿಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ 4 ಸಲ ವಿಚಾರ ಮಾಡ್ತೈತಿ. ಇಮಿಡಿಯೇಟ್ಲಿ ಪಟಕನ ಅಂತ ಡಿಸಿಷನ್ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ತಗೋಕಾಗಂಗಿಲ್ಲ. But we can see now only in corona times only that so many people removed their people working into their companies in so many years just because the businesses have gone down. Okay, then knowledge. Private firms employ managers with the best skills. Okay, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನೋಡ್ರಿ, private firms ನಲ್ಲಿ ರಿಸರ್ವೇಷನ್ಸ್ ನಡೆಯಂಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಓಕೆ, ಯಾವುದೇ ಪ್ರಕಾರದ ರೆಫರೆನ್ಸಸ್ ನಡೆಯಂಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ ನಡೀತೈತಿ? ಓನ್ಲಿ ನಿಮ್ ಕಡೆ ಇರುವಂತ ನಾಲೆಡ್ಜ್ ಅನ್ನ ನಡೀತೈತಿ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಇಫ್ ಯು ಆರ್ knowledgeable, you have all the skill sets that are required for that particular job, then only you will get that job. It doesn't belong from which area you come, what caste category you are, or whatever XYZ reasons. It will not help you to get a job into private sector, because they consider only the skill factor for giving the job and not any other factor. Okay, whereas here the politicians may interfere based on political motives. Okay, so politicians use always this caste system for their political motives, but they never ever put an effort to make people realize to rise above their caste and focus on the real and important things. Then natural monopolies. Private monopolies, example, water trains may charge high prices. Now we are seeing in electricity especially, it has been privatized. Okay, so we are seeing that electrical bills are coming so much high. So this is the negative point of privatization. ಯಾವಾಗ ನೀವು ಪ್ರೈವೇಟೈಸೇಷನ್ ತಗೊಂಡು ಬರ್ತೀರಿ ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ಫೀಲ್ಡ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ಮೊನೋಪೊಲಿ ಆಯ್ತಂದ್ರೆ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಮನ್ಸಿಗೆ ಬಂದಂಗೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೋ ಏನ್ ಸರ್ವಿಸಸ್ ಕೊಡಾಕತ್ತಾರೋ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಚಾರ್ಜಸ್ ತಗೋತಾರೋ. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಅದ್ರಾಗ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಇಂಟರ್ಫಿಯರೆನ್ಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಕೆನಾಟ್ ಡೂ ಎನಿಥಿಂಗ್ ಮಚ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ಇಟ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ದೆನ್ ಸ್ಲೋಲಿ the private companies start exploiting. Okay, then the government can set prices based on social factors. So many anta products are nodri adar mele government namage ಏನು ಕೊಡ್ತೈತಿ, ಸಬ್ಸಿಡಿ ಕೊಡ್ತೈತಿ, because they think it is important for the country and half of or some of part of the expenses will be borne by the government. Okay, so then the last point is depends on industry. So what kind of industry it is, ಅದರ ಆಧಾರ ಮೇಲೆ ಡಿಸೈಡ್ ಆಗ್ತೈತಿ that privatization ಬರಬೇಕು or nationalization ಬರಬೇಕು. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಇದೇನು ಒಂದು ಬ್ರಾಡ್ ಟೇಬಲ್ ಐತಿ, ಇದು ನಮಗೆ ಏನು ತಿಳಿಸ್ತೈತಿ, ದ ಡಿಫರೆನ್ಸಿಯೇಷನ್ ಬಿಟ್ವೀನ್ ಪ್ರೈವೇಟೈಸೇಷನ್ ಅಂಡ್ ನ್ಯಾಷನಲೈಸೇಷನ್. ಸೊ ಆಫ್ ಕೋರ್ಸ್ ನೀವು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು, that how much privatization is beneficiary, similarly it has certain disadvantages also. Then why did government accept to it? Because it was required, because when privatization comes there will be a competition, quality goods will be provided, and the one who can afford to pay that price for that quality, why not give them that opportunity? Okay, so there are many reasons due to which the privatizations came into the nation, and it is still continuing, and in the future it will grow only, it won't decline. Okay, so now let us move towards the further segment. Here there is again one small diagram which helps you in understanding that with privatization who were the winners and who were the losers. As I said earlier, it has a plus minus both point. So first let us focus on the winners. So big industries were on the win-win side because they had the capital, they had the technology, and with the low government interference they started getting more opportunities to sell their product without any restrictions or rules. Banks were at the win-win situation because then they were free to charge the interest rates whatever suited for their particular industry. In banks also private companies started coming in, like ICICI is there, HDFC is there. Okay, earlier SBI and those kind of banks were there only. They are there still also, but the private banks also have entered into the market. Then politicians benefited with this because ultimately references, inducements and all. So privatization benefits the politicians even till date. Okay, then various consultants and traders also got benefited from this privatization policy because they started getting more fees, bigger profits. Ultimately only a few set of people started becoming rich, and that is what led to the wealth maximization into a certain few hands of people. So on the losing side, who are on the losing side? First of all, the taxpayers. Why? Now they have to pay more of the taxes and bail out the costs. Environment. Why environment is on the losing side? Because the private company will never ever care that whatever product they are producing, how it is harming the water bodies or the atmosphere. Okay, so increased pollution and less conservation. We are seeing that day by day the temperature is rising. Okay, the global warming is such a major issue these days. Okay, so can I say it is due to the the uncontrolled growth of the private industries? Yes. Okay. Then it is also a loss for small businesses, because small businesses cannot give competition to big industries as far as the price is concerned, the quality is concerned, the service is concerned, and therefore the small businesses started collapsing. Okay. Then the households, because with the increase into the costs, their budget started going down, the savings started decreasing, and ultimately the investments also started decreasing. And lastly, the workers, because they started losing their jobs, because now the private companies were very keen on appointing only the people who had the best skill set. Okay, so many impacts were there of privatization. Some of them benefited, and largely of them had lost many of the things, but it is unavoidable. Now let us go for the last segment, that is globalization. So what is globalization? Globalization means the integration of various economies of the world, leading towards the emergence of cohesive global economy. Okay, so ಜಗತೀಕರಣವೆಂದರೆ ಸಮಗ್ರ ಜಾಗತಿಕ ಅರ್ಥವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆಯ ಉಗಮಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ಪ್ರಪಂಚದ ಹಲವಾರು ದೇಶಗಳ ಆರ್ಥಿಕತೆಯನ್ನು ಸಂಯೋಜಿಸುವುದು ಎಂದ ಅರ್ಥ. See, we all know that now the world has become a global village. We trade with many foreign countries. Multinational company, MNC, has become a very common word. Okay, it means one company is performing or having its offices or providing services into many other countries also. Before 1991 economic policy, India was reluctant for allowing the foreign countries to enter into the country. But then, looking at the demands and the needs of the country, we opened up the doors for the whole world. And we started having the trade relations, economic trade relations with the neighboring countries. So, ultimately, with the globalization, many foreign companies started coming to India. Similarly, we also started going to many other foreign countries. So it was a two-way transaction which helped the nation in earning more money. Okay. So what is the impact of globalization? Okay, ಯಾವಾಗ ನಾವು ಇಡೀ ವಿಶ್ವ ಸಲುವಾಗಿ ನಮ್ಮ ದಾರಿಗಳನ್ನು ಓಪನ್ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಅದರದ್ದು ಏನು ಪ್ರಭಾವ ಆಗ್ತೈತಿ? ಫಸ್ಟ್, ಇನ್ಕ್ರೀಸ್ ಟ್ರೇಡ್, ವ್ಯಾಪಾರ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗ್ತೈತಿ, ನಿಮಗೆ ಹೊಸ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ ಏರಿಯಾ ಸಿಗ್ತಾವೆ, ಹೊಸ ಅಪಾರ್ಚುನಿಟೀಸ್ ಸಿಗ್ತಾವೆ. ಸೊ ವೆನ್ ಯು ಗೆಟ್ increase trade, you get greater choices for goods. Even the customer gets greater choices for goods. Okay. Then greater competition, and ಯಾವಾಗ ನೋಡ್ರಿ competition ಬಂದ್ಬಿಡ್ತೈತಿ, the consumer will benefit. Okay. So ಯಾವಾಗ competition ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗ್ತೈತಿ, monopoly decrease ಆಗ್ತೈತಿ, ultimately prices ಏನಾಗ್ತಾವು? Low ಆಗ್ತಾವು. But ಯಾವಾಗ low price ಆಗ್ತಾವು, the customer will get benefit. And in greater competition, they also need to maintain the quality also, because if the quality is not there, the product won't survive. Then the economies of scale means more efficient production. The company started focusing on mass production so that they can control their cost of production and maintain their profit margins. Then increased capital and labor mobility. So foreign companies started putting their money into the nation, ultimately which helped in the job creations and labor mobility happened. Okay. Then tax avoidance easier. Okay, due to, see, there are many loopholes into the government policies, and people started making advantage of it, and they started establishing their companies or factories in such areas where they can avoid the tax easily. Then structural unemployment from shifting sectors, and lastly monopoly power of multinationals. So these are some negative points also. So these are the positive points, and these three are the negative points of globalization. So when it happens, sometimes the monopoly comes into the multinational company. We can see in IT sectors there is a huge monopoly. Okay, then we can see that when too much foreign companies start coming in, it leads to the structural unemployment also. Okay, so how much advantageous is there LPG policy? Some disadvantages are also there with that. So nothing is complete. Everybody comes with its pros and cons. But by large, if we want to say, of course, it has helped nation in 1991 to overcome its economic crisis, and today where India is standing, it is actually because of that new economic policy of 1991. This is also a very important segment. I hope all of you have understood my class. Thank you.